Live. Everywhere. On netrootsradio.com. David Waldman. Kagro. In the morning. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is Wednesday, August 20th, 2025. Time for another show. Not that the computer cares anything about that. Everything went haywire all of a sudden. The soundboard decided to shut down. I've never had it shut down in the middle of playing something quite like that before. But I don't know. All right. Well, for those of you listening on the live stream, maybe we're only a second or two behind, or maybe you heard two dings today. That was interesting. So we'll edit that out. And those of you listening to the podcast, it will sound just the same as always. Only the live stream people who get up early and turn on the live stream and listen along with all our mistakes get to hear all of that fun stuff. All right. I don't know what's going on. Let's see. Oh, you know what? We could blame it all on Greg Dworkin, possibly. I don't know if that will actually work, but we can say it. I don't know. Greg has sent me a video, and I went to try to set it up probably in the last 10 seconds before I really needed to be paying attention elsewhere. But then everything crashed, so it really wasn't that. All right. Well, we can blame Trump for it. Can certainly do that. It sounds to me like my levels of the soundboard are also perhaps way down. I don't know. We'll have to try and figure out what's going on. I got some great notes from a listener who chimed in with some suggestions about how I might reset the levels as between me and Greg. That wasn't working out for some reason. Every once in a while you tweak these things, something doesn't sound quite right, and then I don't know. Then it's all it all goes kablooey at some point. It's a very delicate balance we have here, and if you throw things off to boost the volume for something temporarily, well, you might never get back to where you were. Anyway, so it's been rough going this morning, but it's rough going for the country and the world as a result, because Donald Trump is president. Let's bring Greg in. How about some we'll there's some mischief afoot, so we'll try some different fanfare music today. Greg Dworkin making his entrance. Don't worry, I edited it so that it actually fades out right about here, and we don't have to sit there and listen to 3 minutes of the Imperial March. But good morning, Darth Greg. I don't know. It wasn't your fault. You didn't ruin anything. But it's a fanfare we haven't used yet. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine.
All right.
I actually have a Darth Vader helmet that James Earl Jones signed.
Really?
Yeah, well, the gold James Earl Jones signature is fading. It was a fundraiser for the local hospital,
nice.
So I got it. And it was a wonderful... I wear it only on Halloween when the kids come trick-or-treating. I open the door with it.
Yeah, well, I think...
On my head.
Well, yes. Although it would be interesting to do... You're holding it in your hands, and you have a and you have a big suit on that makes it look like you're headless. That might be
I don't do that.
No, all right. Well,
green screen behind me and just ahead. So the important thing is it's Double Ding Wednesday, and that means I have no idea because it's the first time we've ever done it.
Yeah, we could set that up so that it dings a lot, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. It looked like I think it just a weird double tap click here on the mouse.
Yeah,
and
well,
interpreted that as 2 or 3
chicken
clicks.
Dinner, so we all win.
We got it. Okay. Right. Well, I thought maybe starting the music twice would get rid of Trump. It hasn't worked.
I'll tell you what's going on there, though.
Yes, please.
I wasn't going to start with this, but since it came up, why don't we just do some of the polling that we've collected?
Oh.
Do you have that Harry Enton video that
I have it?
made everything go haywire?
I don't know if I do or not. I ended up clicking on. Is it in what do you call it? Link.
It's on a Twitter thingy.
Oh, okay. I opened the wrong Twitter thingy, I think. There was one at the bottom, and I opened that one. All right, I got to go looking. But tell us about Harry Enton, and I will... I got to go to... Well, I gotta click
he's
Zoom,
talking... as you may have heard,
yes.
Donald Trump is making noise about voting by mail and how he hates it, which is a wonderful thing for Democrats because every time he does that and his minions don't show up to vote and then forget to do it on Election Day, that's a great thing. So the local and state parties usually get very upset with him when he says that. but he's been saying that.
I can imagine. All right. I have
Harry's
that video.
going over some polling about it.
All right. Let's roll that.
I feel that Donald Trump is full of BS. What are we talking about here? Let's take a look here. Allow anyone to vote earlier by absentee. In 2020, it was about 2/3. You get 65%. Years after years after years that Donald Trump has been complaining about mail-in voting. Where'd the numbers stand in 2024? Basically the same. 60% of voters say that anyone should be allowed to vote either early or by absentee without needing an excuse. And that actually includes, get this, even 37% of Republicans. You have a substantial portion of Republicans who believe that voters should be back allowed to vote either early or absentee without an excuse. So the bottom line is the American people aren't with Donald Trump. They think he's full of it.
Well, that's nice.
Yeah, so I thought that was a good thing to start off with.
It is, yeah. I hope the levels there were okay. I'm trying to play with levels again here. I don't know. The CNN comes through loud sometimes, soft. I guess it depends on who's taking the...
That's the end of the video. The one video that I love that I won't play, but I happen to have it, is Elise Stefanik doing a live meet and greet with her constituents in her home district, except she didn't, because she tried to make prepared remarks and she was booed off the stage twice.
Yeah, I did see that.
And it's a wonderful video, but all you
like
hear is background booing, which is really low, and you'd really have to jack up those levels in order to hear it.
The one I heard, I couldn't hear. Did she?
I'm giving up, she said.
Anything?
I can't make my remarks. This audience is disrespectful. I'm turning it over to you, who didn't really expect to have to get up here and speak, but you're on. I'm not doing this. You are.
It's up to you. I couldn't hear her at all in the mix that I heard, which was great.
Well, no, you can't. That's the point.
Oh, okay. Well,
that's exactly what her constituents intended to achieve.
I mean, yeah, well done there. Apparently, they were very angry, and part of the line there was you haven't had a town hall in X number of years, 4+ years, and they were mad about that. Although what they wanted to do was to go to the town hall and boo her, so they did. They managed to satisfy that
their chance.
So
right,
that's good.
So speaking of good news polling, the next place we're gonna move to from upstate New York to Virginia.
Hey, I'm here already.
Governor poll from Virginia from Roanoke.
Oh, okay.
Reasonable pollster, B rating. Abigail Spanberger, 46, Winsome Sears, 39. The polls don't have her cracking 40 yet. They will as Republicans consolidate around her, but Spanberger looks like a 7 to 9 point win, maybe double digits, the way things are going.
That'd be okay with me. I'll take it. And so
her campaign is just in shambles. She doesn't really know how to campaign.
Sears.
She wants to run it like a military operation. Oh. Well, that's fine, except you really should run it like a political operation.
Right. I mean, you've changed jobs. If you enjoyed the military, you can stay. Although, I don't know. They were firing all the women officers at some point. I suppose you would have to look for a new job about now.
Right. But more polling. This is from SoCal. Tends to lean a little Republican, B-rated pollster. All voters, it looks like August 19th. Generic ballot, Democrats 42, Republicans 37. So Democrats continue to lead on the generic ballot from anywhere to 3 to 9 points. Again, it's very early in the cycle.
And generic.
And this tends to be the high point for the party in power, so that's all good news.
Okay.
And
downhill
next,
from here.
This one is interactive polls, national poll, YouGov Economist. Interactive polls are the one posting it so we can see it. They're a Twitter shop that retweets polling. National poll, YouGov Economist. President Trump approved 43, that's down 2 points. Disapproved 54, that's up 1 point. Here, the generic ballot for Democrats is 44-39, including not sure 13.
Okay.
Democrats are going to win those not sure as prices go up. It was D+2 last week. Now it's D+5. And Trump's net approval on immigration's -6. That's the strongest feature there. Economy -10, inflation -25. That economy is going to catch up with inflation, which is to say it's just going to get worse and worse and worse for him. Prices are going up. And so it's astounding if you ever go shopping and actually buy stuff, you'll see, but prices are going up.
Well, he won't see that. He doesn't do that stuff.
Right.
But that's you and
me. So my last...
this is it?
This is my last polling thing for today.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
this is a short
isn't
segment.
Forever.
No fair. Yeah.
Right. So Michael Lang, who is a breakout New York City elections analyst who called the Mamdani win early, and he's not a pollster, and he doesn't claim to be a pollster. Of course, he says, I'm just better than pollsters. I have an idea what's going on, actually.
All right.
So he says, I just updated my spreadsheet for the general election. So he's got a great track record, but this is really interesting. He figures, looking at all the information he's getting and analyzing the areas, just like any political nerd. Mamdani, 53, he figures.
Okay.
Cuomo, 26. Sliwa, 16.
Okay.
Adams, Eric Adams, the current mayor.
Who's that guy? Where? Huh? Okay.
5.
But
this comports with actuality. In other words, you look on Twitter and you take Twitter polls. Oh, everybody hates Cuomo. Cuomo has a terrible social media. He's a jerk. He's rude. He's arrogant. He's aggressive. I don't like him. I hate him more than anybody else. But actually, in real life, in the city, it's Adams everybody hates. And this prediction actually reflects that. But here's what's really interesting.
Oh.
Okay.
Yes.
So assume Mamdani, Cuomo, Sliwa, Adams, in that order.
Yes. I can do that.
Queens, where Mamdani's from.
Yeah. All right.
47, 28, 19, 6. That's 47 Mamdani, 28 Cuomo, 19 Sliwa, 6 Adams. That's pretty much, that matches his general overall prediction. As Queens go, so goes the election, that kind of thing.
I guess so.
Mamdani's strongest area is Brooklyn. 59, 21, 14, 6.
Okay.
Staten Island. And this is what I found so interesting. Laugh. Remember, 3% of the vote.
Right.
Very conservative, tends to lean Republican. Staten Island, 28% Mamdani, 27% Cuomo. Wow. This is his prediction.
Yeah.
39% Sliwa, makes sense. It's a Republican area.
Yes.
And 6% Adams.
There's just no winning for
Curtis Sliwa, stronghold.
Yeah.
They all wear red berets and go around on Staten Island subways, of which there are none.
Yeah, all right. Well,
Manhattan.
Yes.
60% Mamdani, 28% Cuomo, 9% Sliwa, and 3% Adams.
Wow. Now, Adams, he was elected once, wasn't he?
Once upon a time as a Democrat.
Yeah. Right.
Well, and in the Bronx, 49, 30, 15, 6. This is just fascinating. Mamdani actually is going to come in second, according to this, in Staten Island. That's just amazing.
Yeah. I guess it's you wouldn't guess it. Great, I think, for him.
Right. And so he adds, look, this is just me cooking, but sometimes that's as good as any poll.
All right. Yeah, what does he do? He's not doing his own polling, he's just analyzing what's out there.
He's analyzing what's out there and looking at the subgroups in terms of polls that have been done, looking at the polls and putting things together.
All right. Well, someone
has Mamdani up 4 out of 5 boroughs. The last time there was a general election, that all 5 boroughs were swept by a mayoral candidate was Ed Koch in 1985.
Okay. It's been a while.
How's he doing? He was doing well that year.
Yeah. Okay. I could see why that would be a rarity, given what we know, say, at least about Staten Island.
Right.
Okay.
There's a podcaster who used to be a council member, New York City Council for 15 years, left-leaning, named Sal Albanese.
Okay.
Well, I don't know he even lives in the city anymore, but he's not on council. He's a podcaster. And he notes, this is really great. The latest endorsement from Zohran Mandani is from, wait for it, we need a fanfare for this.
Let's see. Well, we'll go to I gotta get to the fanfare page. Let's try I don't know. Who we get? Oh, is this a surprise or?
This is a surprise.
Oh, okay. Let's do Majestic. So this is the latest endorsement for Mamdani.
Latest endorsement from Mamdani comes from the legendary Frank Serpico.
Wow. Okay, that was a rather
Serpico,
majestic.
the movie. Ever see it? Al Pacino.
Sure. Yeah.
He's a real person. He's a legend in New York.
Yes.
Not a perfect guy, by no means.
Huh.
But Frank Serpico says, looks like the two altar boys, Adams and Cuomo, are getting slimy on Mamdani. I take that as an endorsement on the face of it. I wouldn't give the time of day for either one.
Well.
Go Mamdani.
Okay. That ought to, well, I don't know what that's worth, endorsement wise, but especially among the young voters are, I think, supposedly convinced already anyway. They'll say, I don't understand. Or, oh, that's the guy who was in the movie that my grandfather likes.
I say it's worth a fanfare.
Yeah. Well, it worked for us. We got that fanfare. I think
so that's the latest news. And again, we talked about this the other day. If culture is culture is upstream of politics, politics is downstream of culture. Culture changes first.
Yes, right.
And then politics changes. And so it's all leaning against Trump. People are not really happy with what he's doing.
No.
And whatever the polling says, there are people that don't pay attention, but some of this is so pervasive you can't not pay attention. You can't not know what's going on with pricing, for example, with how much beef costs, with what's going to happen to your coffee prices. I mean, you can't not know. It's impossible. Yeah,
for normal people, I'm sure that, Donald Trump would lie about it even if he did know, but his favorite pastime seems to be going on and saying, and gas is down to 15 cents, and, mortgage rates are
in a slightly parallel piece here, we know that those who want to still believe Trump believes what he says and says what he means and means what he says tend to watch Fox News because Fox News promotes that.
Yes.
And this is a really fascinating piece about an ongoing, which isn't settled yet, even though amongst all the other things that are settled, the Fox News Smartmatic case is still not settled.
Oh, okay. Yeah. It's that I guess we tend to think more about the other voting machine settlements that have been paid.
Dominion settled, but not Smartmatic.
Right. Okay.
So there was a suit, countersuit, that leads to this thing that lawyers call discovery, and political people said, oh, thank God there's a suit, discovery, because discovery means that you get to see stuff that otherwise would be withheld from you and your eyes so that you don't know. But discovery means that in order to have a fair trial, you have to have relevant information presented to the jury or the grand jury or whoever or the judge. And so somebody is going to decide this, and therefore those who are deciding need to have the facts in front of them so they can do actual fact-finding, which is what courts do.
Yes.
So the title of this Washington Post piece is Jeanine Pirro bragged about helping Trump and GOP while a Fox News host.
Oh.
The former Fox host complained of censorship by Fox over her coverage of the 2020 election, according to newly unredacted documents in the Smartmatic defamation case.
Oh, okay.
But this doesn't just cover Pirro. It actually mentions a couple other people like Hannity and Jesse Waters, so I thought it was interesting. Jeanine Pirro, then a weekend host on Fox News, told the chairman of the Republican National Committee, Ronna McDaniel at the time, in a September 2020 text message, which again, discovery allows you to get, that she was determined to aid President Donald Trump and the Republican Party despite the network prohibiting on-air personalities from political involvement. And she said this speculation is because she wanted her ex-husband to get a pardon. She was really upset he didn't get one, so she wanted to work even harder to support Trump so she'd get what she wants, because everybody knows
Did they get
Fox News hosts have the interests of the country in mind.
Yes. I forgot that she has a husband, and two, that this is a person in need of a pardon.
I think it's an ex-husband.
Ex-husband. Oh, okay. Has it been granted? I don't even know.
No, I think it's an ex-pardon at the moment. She wants it to be a real pardon. Smartmatic compiled previously unreported text messages and emails between Fox employees along with comments made in sworn depositions in an effort to persuade the judge in the long-running case to rule in its favor. Smartmatic's motion was originally filed in late April. They're just deciding now. Smartmatic is arguing that hosts and executives at Fox knew claims that the voting technology company had rigged the election in Biden's favor were false, but allowed them to air to maintain the network support with pro-Trump viewers. And the gist of some of the comments from some of the other hosts and this news report from the Washington Post essentially says Fox News was totally blown away and upset by the fact that they called the 2020 election early for Biden. And their viewers revolted, and they had to do something. And that it was a business decision that they were going all in on Stop the Steal because it was the only way to win these voters back, rather than tell them the truth.
Sure. Well, they don't want
which
that.
Was not an option, apparently.
Yeah, if you want the truth, there's other channels.
Right. Now, Fox News claims it didn't defame Smartmatic. Its hosts were merely covering, without endorsing, newsworthy claims. We have to cover this stuff. Trump is saying it, and he's running for president, and he's president now. So, we have to cover these things. So Smartmatic included many of the conversations in 468 pages of filings to bolster its contention. Pirro and other Fox hosts were determined to stay on Trump's good side for a variety of motives. Pirro, a longtime friend of the president, sought to secure a pardon for her ex-husband, Albert Pirro, convicted earlier of tax evasion and conspiracy. Sounds like somebody who would be good to run the IRS or the Office of Legal Counsel.
Oh, yeah, right. They need one.
Sounds qualified.
Sure.
Albert Pirro was the last person Trump pardoned during his first term. So
okay.
He did get pardoned, but it was really at the end. It wasn't assured at the time, which chronicles the Fox News host fury when her ex-husband was initially not included.
I like fury.
Bernard
She
Kerik
feels
was
entitled to be
included, so
furious.
Pirro was complaining to his girlfriend. Pirro himself, Pirro said, Kerik is a selfish bastard, and I don't care about anybody else. I want my pardon.
Wait a minute. He's a selfish bastard.
That's what she said.
Really? And so am I. Pass the wine.
According to another previously unpublished message, Pirro referred to Fox News host Sean Hannity as an egomaniac who stormed into the Oval Office like he owns the place, threw his papers on the desk, and said, "I'm using the bathroom."
I don't know whether he really did, but okay.
Then Smartmatic argues in the suit that Pirro served as a conduit to Trump, who said the election was stolen, including people like Sidney Powell, the lawyer, the disgraced lawyer.
Yeah.
It's Jeanine P., she texted. Got a former CIA chief of station who knows about this development at Dominion, she wrote.
Sure.
To Powell, referring to another voting technology company that some Fox host said was involved. Keep fighting, Pirro told Powell. Fox settled that case by $787 million. Everybody who thought this case was settled are thinking of Dominion. Smartmatic's a different company. Pirro's producer, Jerry Andrews, warned her directly to stay away from claims of election fraud, but she didn't.
No.
The November 7th, 2020 edition of her show was not aired, and she was infuriated. She started to complain that she's being censored. She told Hannity she made several demands of Fox management after the November show didn't run as scheduled, leading to speculation she was suspended. Hannity tried to console her by saying, "They're promoting your show every 5 seconds. Come on."
All right.
And then Fox went back to say, "We just think it's newsworthy." Fox never corrected its coverage of Smartmatic or acknowledged particular mistakes, Smartmatic noted.
All right.
So, this is the background for how come you can't get any actual news on Fox.
I guess so. There's a business model that prevents it.
Yes. The filing also includes newly public comments made by other Fox hosts, including Jesse Waters and Maria Bartiromo. In a deposition included in Smartmatic's court filing, Bartiromo said no when asked about whether Fox owes Smartmatic an apology. "I think they did an excellent job." In December 2020, Greg Gutfeld and Waters were on air. Waters nodded to the potential upside of aligning with those saying the election was stolen. Think about how incredible our ratings would be if Fox went all in on on Stop the Steal, the Smartmatic document says.
Okay.
But he testified in a deposition, "I didn't see any evidence of Smartmatic switch votes." So, in other words, they knew.
Yeah.
But they did this stuff
anyway.
evidence.
All right. Well, they're selling a product. But it's good to get all this stuff on paper, or I guess it's printed out. They're electronic messages, but now it's printed out.
Why does Brett Baier sometimes get a break from people? He seems to be the, quote, news person now that Chris Wallace is gone.
Oh, I see. He sometimes
Fox News anchor Brett
things.
Baier, according to the filing, notified Fox News that Bartiromo was making false claims about the election. None of this is true as far as we can tell. We need to fact check this crap, he said. That's why he gets a pass sometimes.
I guess so. Is he still there?
Yeah, he's still there. What about behind the scenes? Well, actually, behind the scenes, he's better than he is on the air.
Okay. Well, all right. He's the least weird of the bunch, and I think they all consider themselves. Though these other guys consider them when they get in trouble, they just say, "Well, we're the opinion side."
Right. The filing, like the motions made by Dominion, showed that many Fox hosts were concerned about audience backlash after Fox was the first network to call the state of Arizona for Biden in 2020. Waters said, "There's an audience uprising like I've never seen." Waters' producer told him, "You cannot under any circumstances cast doubt." And the same day, Waters texted Fox News host Pete Hegseth and said, "By the way, did you get the memo about not saying fraud?"
Yeah. No.
So they knew they were not supposed to. They knew about the fact that it wasn't true. They did it anyway. I think Smartmatic has a pretty good case here.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm not a lawyer. I'm just a common sense jurist.
Yes.
Trying them in the court of public opinion, and I think Fox is screwed.
That. All right. We got some. We could always play this one on this.
It's all there, black and white, clear as crystal.
That seems to be the case, and that's what they're finding and discovering.
Any Gene Wilder is good.
Yeah.
So we're almost up to the break here, but that's my segment.
Okay.
That's my double ding segment for this Wednesday, August 20th.
Right. Well, only one ding, and now we're done with the dings, and we were dinging everything else today. But well, that's fascinating. I like getting that sort of behind the scenes look at what Fox hosts were communicating to one another. Juries will find that fascinating, I'm sure. And good. I hope it costs them another couple $100 million.
Yeah, well, more media observation after the break.
I don't see how it could fail to. I mean, basically, this is the same case that Dominion had against them.
You lose. Good day.
That's right. We can play that one. Well, we'll wait for the trial to actually begin at least.
Hi everybody, this is Scott Anderson, your summary guy. Were you looking forward to an egalitarian democracy free of bigotry, misogyny, racism, and greed, where people of different appearances, belief, and heritage had a right to live without fear, and everyone could expect a basic level of health, stability, and safety throughout their life? Well, too bad. The plain fact is that we're heading in the wrong direction. And where we once had a voice in such things, increasingly we don't. Not exactly the kind of news I wanted to share, but there it is. However, if you're looking to join people who understand today's issues and can intelligently address the reality of today from your point of view, you can join us at Kagro in the morning. As you know, there aren't many of us out there, at least compared to them. We need to stick together, and by that I mean send us money. That is contributions to patreon.com. Secure, reoccurring contributions. Those contributions keep this show on the air and us together. We've been through a lot together. The temporary loss of the presidency, we hope. The temporary loss of the House, the Senate, the Supreme Court, we hope. Face it, we are pretty much all that we have left. Remember, we couldn't do it without you, and you shouldn't do it without us. We're in this together, so thanks.
All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. I neglected to sneak in a mention of I think you all know this from having heard the stories, but I'll just remind you that the selfish lady who thinks everybody else is selfish and who was in it all along for a pardon for her ex-husband, which is an interesting thing to do. I know a lot of people usually, you would think they'd be like, hey,
I'm campaigning to not pardon my ex-husband.
Right. I was looking for an execution more so than a pardon, but whatever. I must have a strange relationship, and she did get that pardon. Anyway, this liar
that's what the X sign she was holding up during her show meant.
I guess so. But this Fox host who is knowingly lying about the voting machine situation, just, by way of mention here, so you're aware, now the U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia. I don't know whether she's still in an acting position, but that's the intention, was to install her there. After being unable to install anybody else, they went to the Central Casting, which is Fox News, for Donald Trump. Okay.
Reminder, I don't blame Trump. I blame the Republican Senate.
Yeah, I guess.
Spineless worms who said, sure, why not? I mean, she's obviously qualified because we want to forgive anybody who, had anything to do with January 6th in advance.
I guess so. And if you drink
our problem is we did it after the fact. This time we're doing it in advance.
It's really amazing. But she's so by the way, she's just very disturbing looking. It's like her eyes are headed in different directions at all times, and it's a little difficult to take her seriously. And my overall impression of her is really the Saturday Night Live version of her. It's what's her name? Cicely. What's Cicely's last name? I only remember the fact that her first name is Cicely, but did a great. I guess she's gonna have to continue doing that. She was
terrific.
And with the big glass of wine, and she would show up on the Weekend Update and just either spit it or throw it on Colin Jost.
Right.
I don't know. It was well done. And the slurred speech, and just your U.S. attorney. She's in the news, by the way, for coming up with her fantastic new policy. She's not going to prosecute certain gun crimes in D.C. If you want to carry around
that's the pre-January 6th pardon I was talking about.
Okay. For the next time around. Right.
Because their mistake was doing it after the fact. They really should have done it beforehand.
Right.
Like the Supreme Court did.
This will depend greatly on probably the color, not so much of the gun. They do sometimes call those long guns black guns because of the color of the guns. But, I have a feeling that the color of the people carrying the guns is going to make a difference.
Matter more than the color of the gun.
Yeah, so you can carry a rifle or a shotgun around. She's just not going. She's going to use prosecutorial discretion not to charge you with the federal crimes of carrying a. And by the way, I'm sure the Secret Service is super happy about. You can carry an AR-15 around the White House if you want to, except they probably understand. Well, certain people will be able to do this, and certain others will get clubbed over the head and be prosecuted. So. Should be fun.
So why don't you hear more about this in the mainstream media? Not that anybody watches nightly news anymore except old people, but still, it's still on the air and they still do this sort of stuff. This is an interesting piece by Terry Moran.
Oh, yes.
Terry Moran used to work for ABC News, said some uncomplimentary things about Trump which were demonstrably true on social media and got fired.
Yeah.
So now he has a blog. It's called The Media and Our Autocratic Presidency, this piece. His blog is called Real Patriotism with Terry Moran.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
The media and our autocratic presidency don't look away, my friends, he says. And I just thought this was really interesting in terms of his point of view about how the media's point of view gets played out in real life. In the mainstream corporate legacy news media where I, Terry Moran, spent almost 28 years, there's a fiction that's practiced every single day. It remains the foundation of political coverage as these networks and institutions, and it's premised on mostly honorable beliefs about how news media can best serve the needs of the American people. The fiction is this. The Trumpist Republican Party and the Democratic Party are fundamentally the same.
Okay.
For most of my Terry Moran's long career in mainstream media, this approach made sense to me. It worked. It roughly matched the reality of American politics for those years. Democrats and pre-Trump Republicans believed different things and fought fiercely about them. They pursued their goals with hardball tactics, dark money, and often distant relationship with the truth, but they shared a general commitment to constitutional boundaries, though they did try to push and bend them from time to time, like George W. Bush. He asserted maximal presidential powers in the war on terror. Barack Obama exceeded what he himself had repeatedly declared were the limits of presidential power when he established the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, or DACA, immigration policy. But in general, on most days, presidents of both political parties respected constitutional boundaries and abided by judicial enforcement. We no longer live in that America. To deny that Donald Trump is tearing down many of the old constitutional boundaries that mark the limits, to refuse to see that Trump is establishing a supercharged presidency and an autocratic executive branch to refashion our government into an instrument of his personal will, his personal prejudices, and his personal demons, and I would add his personal bank account, And to pretend that the Trumpist GOP in Washington is not complicit, despite decades of protestations that they represent the party of limited government, is to blind yourself to reality. And it is also to rob the American people of the truth they need to understand the actual facts of this moment and to exercise their will. But to describe that reality, to stand up and name the grim truth, feels like a betrayal for many in mainstream media. The old code, commitment to what is called objectivity, grows out of hope. It feels noble. The hope that there's a way to rise above and beyond it all. I would say this isn't just true for the way mainstream media covers politics. It's also true for you who still don't get it, complaining about redistricting. How can Democrats redistrict? They're just like the other side if they do that. We need an independent commission. Look, that's the old world.
Yeah.
In the new world, you don't disarm yourself when your opponent is obviously trying to get a nuke.
Yeah.
It feels noble. Yeah. The hope is there's a way to rise in above it all, but there is no Mount Olympus of objectivity, far removed from the hurly-burly of national life. There are no civic eunuchs who have no tangible involvement in that life, no evaporated citizens without personal interest at stake.
Okay.
This is what Jay Rosen used to call the Church of the Savvy. That's where he thought most of the media worshiped that. Right. There's no Mandarin class possessing sacred knowledge in America. We are all in this together. And as a journalist, I've always believed the goal is not to be objective, but to be fair. We can all do that. It requires the spiritual discipline of trying your best to open your mind and your heart to the story you're reporting and to the people involved in it. That's what's so annoying about Fox News. When they say they're fair and balanced, they're completely unfair, and they're nothing close to balanced.
Right. You need to say that so that people will regard you that way.
Yeah. There is, or ought to be, a risk every time you go out on a story. The risk is you'll come back changed. That's the goal. That's the job. ABC News sent me to cover the mass shooting at Virginia Tech on April 16, 2007. 32 people were killed. The gunman took his own life. For several days, I spoke with survivors and loved ones. I remember how quiet the campus was. A horrid silence hung in the air. I know that silence. I felt it in Newtown. It wasn't the first, nor would be the last mass shooting I covered, nor the last atrocity, terror attack, natural disaster, war, or other tragedy. When I got home, my daughter, Madeline, 10 years old, looked at me and said, Daddy, does it make you sad to cover sad stories? And I said, darling, the day it doesn't is the day I quit. All good reporters go through the same thing. The good ones aren't braggarts. They're humble before the reality they chronicle. Fairness in journalism is simply the honest accounting of what you've seen and heard and understand. That's what's in front of our faces. Those are the facts, the truth. But mainstream media can't say it, and that is a problem. There are two reasons for this paralysis. One is silly, the other sad. Silly is mainstream news organizations are paranoid about being accused of bias by right-wingers. The Trumpist media and its allied politicos have developed an industry of outrage. There is indeed some to be found. Lack of viewpoint diversity in the old media has led to missed stories and unheard voices, but the Trumpist bias police are one-sided. Newsmax is 1 billion times more biased than anything mainstream media ever did. Fox News, One Network News, whatever it is. The right-wing media critics aren't serious. They don't want unbiased news. They want news that flatters their biases, period. So that's the silly part. The sad part, telling the truth about Trump has been determined by corporate America to be bad for business. The enormous powers of the presidency and the executive branch in the hands of Trump can wreak havoc on even the most powerful American corporations. See CBS and, firing Stephen Colbert because they want a merger and they think the government will stop them if they don't because it's crony capitalism. The lesson Americans have learned in the last few months, the last part was me adding him, the lesson Americans have learned in the last few months, corporations will always knuckle under. Our country's never faced a challenge like this. The only way out is the way of truth. Tell it first to yourself, then to others. That's what we do, David.
Yeah.
We're fair.
I feel like I'm not.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm fairly outraged, but, fair.
True.
Truth-telling can be contagious. Who knows? One day you might hear it on TV. So you and I really ought to be telling more positive stories.
Uh-oh.
Like I, for example, am positive that Trump is a complete jerk, liar, and moron.
All right. Well, that sort of thing I can do with great certainty.
Huh.
Well, all right.
But it's interesting. That was a pretty decent critique from somebody who's been there.
Yeah.
It's absolutely true. And so what's infuriating is this whole idea about, you need to be balanced. We need to have an independent commission to balance what Democrats do because Republicans, you know how they are. You can't be like them.
Essentially,
you have to be something that will guarantee that you lose.
Right. So there has to be decency and rules.
That's just
for Democrats.
Those are the rules. I don't write the rules.
Yeah.
Well, actually, you do. You can. And so rewrite those damn rules.
No. Yeah. Well, it's remarkable. This happens over and over again. Is that there need to be standards and rules where Democrats are concerned. But it's not something you can make. It's Republicans will be Republicans. There's nothing you can do to make them conform with the rules. But two wrongs don't make a right.
Yeah, they do. They balance each other, and that's what you need.
In some ways, yeah. It's not so much that we're trying to make a right here. We're just trying to make it less wrong. I mean, two wrongs can be wrong, or they can be really, really terribly wrong. And, you might not be able to make things right with a smaller wrong, but you might be able to make the larger wrong less obnoxious.
A peaceful world, a peaceful forest with Bambi and Thumper is the ideal.
I guess so.
Sure. But I say, if Bambi were armed, an armed standoff is better than a massacre.
Yeah, true. Right.
Let it stay a standoff.
Okay.
Let no shots be fired.
It's really remarkable.
Better than just let the other guy open fire because that's what they do. Everybody knows that.
Yeah. There's nothing you can do with those guys. They like to shoot. What can you do?
They're hunters. They like to shoot deer. I mean,
don't shoot back. That may make things worse. You should wait until he hits you. And then,
well.
Sure. All right. Well, it's really remarkable the way this redistricting thing is going too. Well, in the first couple rounds when they were floating, I guess retaliatory, unlike the tariffs, retaliatory redistricting in California, and there were Democrats saying, no, don't do it, don't. It'll make us just as bad as them, but it won't.
That's faded. The other thing that's faded is what are the Democrats doing in Texas trying to flee? What useless stuff. They're going to have to come back. I mean, it's a part-time legislature. You get fined if you don't go. They have their own business interests to take care of and so on. It's very difficult for them to do that. They did it anyway. What did they do? They actually rallied other states like Illinois and California and Colorado, New York. So that was time well spent.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I was sad to see they had to eventually return. And of course, that whole situation has become even more ridiculous. As now, I guess the word is that the Republicans in control of the chamber are using the muscle of the sergeant at arms, saying, "No, you're no longer allowed. We won't allow you to flee the state again." And they now have police minders essentially with all of the Democratic members to make sure they don't leave. And if you don't allow for that, apparently you have to sign some paperwork allowing yourself to be tailed by a police officer. You need a permission slip
to do it, and there's one legislator who wouldn't, so she's locked up in the chamber.
Yeah, and I mean, really locked up. They won't let her out of the legislative chamber, which is insane. She's actually had to file a habeas corpus petition to try to get out. And look, you can't imprison me in the legislature. I serve, but I mean, and I know you say, well, there's consequences if you leave. Well, then bring the consequences. You don't lock me in the chamber so that I can't, make a choice about whether or not I'm going to face the consequences.
Well, it's nice to see the authoritarians exposed. I'm sorry.
No kidding. But holy cow. Well, she's certainly making the most of it in terms
But it's clear who they are. I mean, so
the
mask is off, as they say.
Yeah. Wow. Well, between that and the redistricting fight coming up in California, I mean, Republicans are suing to try to block whatever it is that California Democrats have in mind by way of process. And Speaker Johnson, actually out there speaking to the media saying, we have to stop the Democrats' illegal power grab in California, which is, of course, in every aspect of it, that they're being quite obvious about it. It's a reaction to your illegal power grab in Texas. Well, no, our power grab isn't illegal. Theirs is. And we're going to sue to stop it, too. It's really rather amazing, and I guess it'd be very difficult. I hope it's difficult for people to sit through this and see this on the news, on TV, and say, yeah, both sides, exactly the same.
it reminds me, and this was, I think, a good point. I often cringe when I see Gavin Newsom's social media acting like Trump and being Trump-like, deliberately being Trump-like when he goes out and insults Trump and insults people who, are against redistricting, and then does people praying for him like Trump cultists do. Or dressed like Superman.
To you? That's funny.
It's all funny. And so the point of all of it isn't that all of a sudden Gavin Newsom is a guy I want in 2028 to run.
No.
The point of all of it is that his brilliant media strategist is putting Trump's actions and deeds and words to a mirror in front of Republicans' faces, and they don't like it.
Yes. And it's getting under their skin. They really are upset about it. And that's hilarious.
It is hilarious because it's exactly what they do. And they're being forced to confront what they do in a form that makes them think about it. They don't like it. That's the point.
Newsom, I know Newsom isn't crafting these things himself, but he's completely in sync.
He hired a guy named Izzy somebody or other. I forget who.
I thought it was a
digital media manager
but...
who's just brilliant at this. But there's a point to it, and it's working.
Yes, and it
isn't working to make Gavin Newsom the next president or the next nominee or any of that stuff.
Don't worry about that. I know a lot of people are very upset about. Well, if you support his doing this, that's going to catapult him into the first place in the race. Nah, not really.
Everybody still hates him. Don't worry about it.
It's fine. Everyone wants to make that point, and it's fine to go ahead and make that point too. Although at some point you probably could just move on. But let's say for the next 6 days or so. You can go ahead and make that point. But Newsom articulated what he was doing very clearly, despite the fact that someone else is handling the social media aspect of it. It's not like he was clueless as to what it was about. He was asked about why are you doing things? So isn't this an embarrassment to the office? And he says, if you think that's embarrassing for the governor of California to be doing, and it doesn't register with you, everybody knows what I'm doing and who I'm mimicking, and none of you think it's an embarrassment for the president to be tweeting this way. And the thing is, I know that you do think it's an embarrassment. Why are you saying that? Why don't you? No one ever asks the president, aren't you embarrassed to be doing what you're doing? You're asking me though, and I'm just the governor of California.
Yeah, go ask him.
Yeah, so I thought that was a pretty,
exactly. So it's great, and it's right in the media faces, and that fits with what Terry Moran was writing about.
Now I'm angry.
Yeah.
So it's it was well done. I have to track them. There's some profiles about who's helping him with the social media. The only aspect about it I don't like is, hey, we all have been doing tweets in Trump style for like 10 years, and none of us got paid for it. But it's nice that somebody who's actually very good at it has convinced a national level politician to use their platform to do this and to make this point.
Yeah, both do that and endorse Mandani, and we got something here.
Oh, well. Yeah, no, he can't do that because then it'll make him so popular that even people who hate him will be forced to vote for him or something.
Yeah, right. As you pointed out the other day, don't worry about him running for president. He can't. He won't. He's going to have to devote himself to New York City. Isn't that wonderful? Right.
Sure. Yes. You can put that out of your mind. Gavin Newsom, I guess, can run for president, but you don't
maybe
have
he will,
to
but so what?
Vote
this has
for
nothing
him.
to do with that.
Yeah. You can. A lot of people are doing a good job, and we don't want our Democrats out there doing a good job because they might be rewarded for it.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can get along with that. Okay.
So let me tell you about how certain institutions can fight back.
All right.
No, I'm not talking about Harvard or Columbia. I'm not talking about CBS or any of the News Corps who are just fearful of their audience.
Is it Tupperware?
Because they're declining anyway, so that's why they're so fearful. No. We're going to talk about another American institution. In break with current CDC recommendations, leading pediatrics group recommends COVID-19 shots for young children. Despite everything RFK is lying about, the AAP, the American Academy of Pediatrics, released its updated recommendations on Tuesday, that was yesterday, including COVID-19 shots for infants and young children, a break from the U.S. Centers for Disease Control.
Yeah, because they're crazy.
From recent recommendations of the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices of the CDC, which was overhauled this year and replaced with individuals who have a history of spreading vaccine misinformation, the AAP said in a news release. The Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices were usually staffed by American Academy of Pediatrics representatives from family practice, internal medicine. All those people actually know what they're doing were fired and replaced with flunkies, goons, and mooks. And the AAP said so at the time and said, we won't participate even if we get invited. These people are unqualified and they shouldn't be there doing what they're doing. We'll make our own recommendations as we have for 100 years. Okay. Now, it happens that it usually coincides with CDC, but not this year.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. That's how you do it. Change in practice, right? Well, people probably didn't notice that they made their own recommendations for 100 years because it always, and of late would comport with the CDC. Of course, they'll be on the same page.
Dr. Sean O'Leary, chair of the AAP Committee on Infectious Diseases, said at the time that AAP liaisons to ACIP did not participate because we view the meeting as illegitimate. When we heard in this meeting was really a false narrative that the current vaccine policies are flawed and they need fixing. In August, AAP was one of 30 medical and public health organizations that were formally sidelined from their roles. The email called liaison members special interest groups that are expected to have a bias. That's what RFK said.
I see.
And so in Tuesday's news release, AAP urged insurance providers to cover the vaccines. RFK is threatening to not cover or not protect them from liability if you don't follow his recommendations.
Yeah. To get the disease.
Oh, and by the way, AAP also issued updated recommendations to RSV and flu vaccines in addition to more than 10 other vaccines. So they're basically ignoring RFK Jr., which is the proper thing to do.
Yeah, you should absolutely ignore me. So I don't know. He's got a wacko voice. I don't know. I have to study that one, but thankfully I don't hear it enough.
We don't know what's going on with COVID-19 shots to older people this fall in terms of how available they might be. You might have to pay for them, but that's not the same thing as they're not available. We just don't know what's happening with that.
Yeah, and I mean they can price them so that it's almost the same thing as being not available, but hopefully they don't go and do that.
Right, because the FDA, for example, can they haven't yet, but they can withhold or not renew authorization for vaccines for kids under 5. I mean, they can just do stuff.
Yeah, and
so that's getting a lot of doctors upset. And there's a companion piece here Joe Lawrence wrote and contacted me and said, I think you'll like this one. I do. Democratic doctors are pouring into politics. Thank Trump and RFK Jr.
All right.
And she talks about, remember the old, you like the soccer mom stuff. You always love that.
There's going to be a new group.
Charity dads.
Sure.
Year of the women, because like 4 women were elected to the Senate.
Yeah, well, it's a lot for a year.
Right. Already in this 25-26 cycle, she says, 314 Action, which is dedicated to helping Democrats with science backgrounds win local, state, and federal elections, says that more than 150 doctors have reached out about running for office in 36 states.
All right.
Right. 314
Dr.
Action is named after Pi, P-I.
I was wondering about that. Like, is that an area code or is that Pi?
3.14159. Everybody knows that, right?
Yeah.
The group, cheekily named after Pi.
Why, though?
Expects a historic wave of doctors and scientists to launch campaigns.
Good. It's interesting. I don't know why Pi for doctors, but I mean, why not, I guess. Are there a lot of calculations with pi in medicine? I would have thought if you're trying to get geometry teachers to run for office, that made sense. But,
yeah, well, it's just, this is it.
Yeah.
So, this reminds me of the old MIT cheer.
Oh, what is that?
E to the U, dx, e to the U, dx, cosine, secant, tangent, sine, 3.14159. Everybody, knows the number.
Sure.
You go to an engineering school, that's the stuff you learn.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, all right. Well, I didn't know what the relationship to the doctors was. And the only, I guess I got to catch up on all the doctors. Right? I know that Dr. Amy, who I like to call Dr. Amy Action, which is actually Amy Acton, running.
Oh, there's one more. There's Ohio, one more stanza now, to the cheer though. Oh. This is the cheer the Tiddlywinks team on because we had champion Tiddlywinks teams. Integral, radical, mu, DV, slipstick, slide rule, MIT, go tech.
I like it. All right.
Yeah.
I'm not exposed to that otherwise.
Right. So I
appreciate
these are these are the things you have to learn.
Yeah.
But it's real. It's real. There's an actual.
They really do it.
Yeah.
Okay. Not a joke, because it would make a
No, it's not.
Joke.
It's just that it doesn't come up very often.
Yeah, I don't hear it. You don't hear it in
what are you going to do?
Ordinary conversation, right?
Problem sets? No.
Yeah, not a lot of call for it, but I had to figure they were doing something. If they were busying themselves with elaborate physics pranks on campus, they had to be making some cheers as well. Right. A lot easier to do that.
Now, don't forget, engineer. It's an engineering school.
Yes.
So they're
I'm familiar.
Yeah. So their figure, their cheerleading icon is a beaver.
Okay, he's an engineering animal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So that's who the mascot is. Mm-hmm. And if you get a ring from them when you graduate, there's a beaver engraved on the ring.
Yeah.
Which the locals kindly refer to as a brass rat. So I see you have your brass rat. You must have gone to MIT.
I got it.
Right?
Okay.
So the first part of the cheer goes, I'm a beaver, you're a beaver, we are beavers all. And when we get together, we do the beaver call. E to the U, the U, the X, E to the X, the X. Cosine, secant, tangent sine, 3.14159. That's how come I know 3.14159.
Is that right?
I just can rely, off the top of my head, that's what it is.
Yeah,
Everybody
it has a certain cadence.
Don't you know the cheer?
Sure. Well, like a whole generation that can sing the preamble to the Constitution.
Or knows what a slide rule is.
Yeah. Well, those things are being phased out, to be sure.
Yeah.
But they make a nice success.
In my first year, slide rules were still being used, but the...
and you wore a beanie.
Reverse Polish notation of the calculator had just come out. So Hewlett-Packard, was trying to supplant the slide rule. Well, my sophomore year, it was already done.
Yeah, okay. So the deed was done at that point, along with the buggy whip industry.
Yeah.
Disappearing.
So go Democratic doctors and scientists and STEM people. Jill Lawrence is right to point out you're needed. Take care, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Very good. We'll see you then. Oh, we got to catch up on foreign policy by that next time. All right. Well, it'll still be there tomorrow.
Yeah, the stinker of the summit is still there.
All right. Welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. We got more. Let me back up a little bit. We didn't cover our foreign policy aspect that we wanted to do today. There's just too many other things going on. But I think you know the basics of it by now anyway. And this will just give us one more day to digest things. There'll be more write-ups about how bad the summit was. If you're talking only about the summit in Alaska with Putin. And then I guess it wasn't nearly as disastrous, but it was just still an embarrassment. The other summit held in Washington, in which the rest of the world essentially came to very carefully, they had to tread a very careful line, hoping to do an intervention, but also and persuade Trump not to abandon Ukraine and not to simply knuckle under to Putin. But they knew they needed to do it in a way that made it sound like they were praising Trump, because that's the only way he'll listen. But then at some point he decided not to listen to them, but rather to listen to Putin and get up and go and take a 40-minute phone call with Trump or with Putin, and then return to the meeting. And I'd be very interested to know what got discussed in the 40 minutes while he had left them alone in there. And I guess there was no coverage of that. But at any rate, we'll get back to that tomorrow, I hope. And I say I hope because then that would mean that not too many other things went haywire in between now and then, so that we could turn around and cover these things. But I mentioned to you earlier that Jeanine Pirro, once she finishes her box of wine, has decided not to prosecute at least certain gun crimes in D.C., those that I guess that could be federalized. The Washington Post has this story they say as an exclusive. I assume it's spread by now, but Pirro's office won't pursue gun charges over carrying rifles, shotguns. DC's top prosecutor said her office would continue charging violent crimes and firearms trafficking that involves those weapons. But that essentially, in a nod to the gun nut wing of the Republican Party, and I mean, that's kind of the whole thing at this point. It's not really so much a wing. They are essentially saying, well, we'll allow certain people that we're in agreement with anyway to carry their weapons wherever they want, presumably so long as they don't shoot anybody with them, but maybe even if they do, who knows. Salvador Rizzo is the author of the piece. Federal prosecutors in D.C. have been instructed not to seek felony charges against people who are carrying rifles or shotguns in the nation's capital, regardless of the strength of the evidence, interestingly enough. Like, you're caught carrying one and everybody can see it. That would be pretty strong evidence. This, according to now U.S. Attorney, in fact confirmed by the Senate back on August 2nd, U.S. Attorney Jeanine Pirro, and an email reviewed by the Washington Post. Everybody's reviewing Jeanine Pirro's emails. She's that kind of person. The new policy, which Pirro said was crafted by the Justice Department and its Solicitor General, marks a break with past practice. Why would its Solicitor General be involved in that? I have no idea. I mean, he's obviously a Second Amendment freak, true, but the Solicitor General will rarely have anything to do with gun crime prosecutions in Washington, D.C., unless, of course, it rises to the level of something like Heller, where you reach the Supreme Court and you're trying to essentially refashion the Second Amendment in your own preferred image, something like that. But there's really no reason for the Solicitor General to be involved in this. It does mark a break with past practice. Usually there's a strong federal interest in not allowing people to carry assassination machines around with them where the president spends a lot of time. But now, I don't know. We're not sure exactly what motivates this, except that I guess if they want to bring in volunteers who haven't yet signed up to work for ICE to thug around in D.C. and bring their own guns to do it, I don't know. I guess that's what they're trying to encourage. Either that or the next, as Greg says, the next January 6th. For the record, the January 6th insurrection, they keep pointing to the fact and trying to show that it was unarmed. It wasn't unarmed. It was mostly unarmed in terms of firearms. But one, it wasn't entirely clear of firearms either. And two, they just left behind firearms and instead brought clubs and gas and chemical agents and all sorts of other weapons and knives, etc., and attacked people with those. But they've made a conscious effort for the most part. Now, a large contingent of the January 6 people, the ones who had bought T-shirts ahead of time saying that it was the launch of this next civil war, for instance, brought guns with them. And in most cases, actually, the organized cases actually left caches of weapons in cars and hotel rooms in Virginia, but didn't bring them with them to the day's activities in January 6th because it's largely against the law, both the D.C. local law and federal law, to openly carry these weapons with you. And they actually, so one law they decided to obey. Sacking the Capitol, that one they didn't care to obey. But they weren't crazy. They were, but they weren't crazy enough to also do so with the guns. They left them behind. And so I suppose there's some credit to the fact that that law exists and people know it and it can be used against them. And Jeanine Pirro is now saying, we're just not going to use that law against you, so feel free to bring your guns to the next January 6th. So, problematic. The new policy, which Pirro said was crafted by the Justice Department and its Solicitor General, which I have doubts about, marks a break with past practice. Like I said, prosecutors have used the D.C. law at issue, which prohibits carrying shotguns or rifles, with narrow exceptions for permit holders, They've used it to charge defendants in several high-profile incidents, including a 2019 shotgun attack in Northeast Washington and the Pizzagate shooter. Remember that guy who targeted a restaurant in the city's Chevy Chase neighborhood with an AR-15 rifle and a handgun in 2016? I didn't even realize. Is Chevy Chase a neighborhood of Washington, D.C.? I thought it was a neighborhood of Maryland, but maybe not. I don't know. Or maybe it's expanded outward into the D.C., over the D.C. border. The shift comes at an unexpected time, just as the Trump administration ramps up federal law enforcement to unprecedented levels on the streets of D.C. in a bid to decrease crime rates. And I mean, really, by the way, they should have enclosed law enforcement in scare quotes. We don't know who those guys are. They're all masked and they won't identify themselves. So maybe they're federal law enforcement, or maybe they're just hobbyists with guns and access to surplus stores so that they can pretend to be police. But anyway, the shift comes at an unexpected time, just as the Trump administration ramps up federal law enforcement to unprecedented levels on the streets of D.C. They say in a bid to decrease crime rates, but that's not what their activities indicate. And it complicates the White House's boasts of seizing dozens of guns as part of President Trump's surge, right? A lot of the people they're arresting, if they're blah people, as Rick Santorum would say it, and they had guns, well, then we prosecute those gun crimes. If they're white, of course, we're not seizing them, so what's the difference? The White House said the enhanced law enforcement teams had seized 68 firearms as of Tuesday morning, but that's going to be perfectly legal for white guys with face coverings from now on, I guess. Pirro, an ally of Trump, to say the least, who was confirmed as D.C.'s top federal prosecutor this month, said her office would continue charging crimes of violence or firearms trafficking that involved shotguns or rifles. There is no indication that D.C. prosecutors plan to stop charging people, like the D.C. prosecutors, not the federal prosecutors working in D.C. No indication that they're going to stop charging people found to be illegally possessing handguns, which account for the bulk of firearms offenses in the district. In a statement to the Post, Pirro said Tuesday night that D.C.'s blanket prohibition on carrying shotguns or rifles is clearly a violation of the Supreme Court's holdings in two landmark cases, she says, expanding the right to bear arms, D.C. versus Heller, previously mentioned, from 2008, and New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruin from 2022. The U.S. Supreme Court held in the first case that individuals may possess firearms in their homes for purposes such as self-defense, invalidating a handgun ban that the district had in place at the time. In the Bruin case, and it's B-R-U-E-N, Bruin, the justices said any gun control regulations that are not rooted in U.S. historical tradition, you remember this one, should be struck down by lower courts, and that means everything has to be a musket. Without question, President Donald Trump and I, this is Jeanine Pirro, and she's got a voice of her own. I got to work on this one, but when they do her on the TV, it's kind of a little bit like, without question, it's a little drunk sounding. President Donald Trump, I got to work on this one, and I are committed to prosecuting gun crime. It's a little bit like that when they do it on SNL. This unprecedented number of gun case prosecutions in both federal and local court is only done consistent with the Constitution and the laws of the land. Glug, 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 essentially. Regarding the new policy, Pirro added, nothing in this memo from the Department of Justice and the offices of the Solicitor General precludes the United States Attorney's Office from charging a felon with the possession of a firearm, which includes a rifle, shotgun, and attendant large-capacity magazines, pursuant to D.C. Code 22-4503, in case you need the number. What it does preclude is a separate charge of possession of a registered rifle or shotgun. So basically, if that's all they have on you, if you don't shoot anybody and all they have on you is possession, she says she's not going to charge you. But what it really means is if she doesn't like you, she'll charge you and claim that you did something else if she really cares about being compliant with the so-called policy, or not. Maybe she'll just say, to hell with it. I'm going to charge you, but if she likes you, she can let you go. The U.S. Attorney's Office in D.C. is the only one in the country that prosecutes local street crimes in addition to federal cases. D.C. law makes it a crime for people to carry rifles or shotguns outside their homes or places of business without permits, which are rarely granted. The district does not have reciprocity laws that allow people to carry firearms with permits from other jurisdictions, a frequent point of contention for Second Amendment rights groups. First-time offenders can be fined and imprisoned up to 5 years if convicted. The D.C. Attorney General's office has limited jurisdiction over local crime, with the power to prosecute juvenile offenses and certain adult misdemeanors, but not firearms-related felonies. Authorities recovered 98 rifles and 38 shotguns in the district in 2023, the most recent year for which data is available, along with 2,842 pistols and revolvers, according to the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. Not all firearms in the data were used in crimes, the ATF said. Trump declared a crime emergency, which is false, of course, in D.C. this month and has deployed a surge of federal law enforcement agents across the city, lamenting in an executive order on August 11th that the, quote, rising violence in the Capitol now urgently endangers public servants, citizens, and tourists. You know, like with guns and stuff like that. Pirro, a former Fox News personality who previously served as a judge briefly and prosecutor in Westchester County, New York, has praised Trump's actions as long overdue. No one ever asked for them before. Violent crime in D.C. is the lowest it's been in 30 years, according to D.C. police data, though Trump and Pirro say it remains unacceptably high. The White House said last week that Trump's task force on D.C. crime was cutting down the city's firearms regulations, which are seen as some of the strictest in the country. A White House spokesperson told Fox News that Trump's task force had successfully reduced the average permit processing time from several months to just 5 days, and that the D.C. police had begun taking next day and walk-in appointments to register firearms. How exciting. What a great way for them to be spending their time, rather than, fighting crime. Pirro, at a news conference last week, pointed to photos of dozens of D.C. teens who had been killed by gunfire since last year, and she said she would be working to get illegal guns off the streets, unless you're white. Whoops. She didn't say that. I guarantee you that every one of these shootings was with an illegal gun, all right? Pirro said, well, yeah, because guns are largely illegal in the district. Pirro said, and I guarantee you that every one of these individuals was shot and killed by someone who felt that they were never going to be caught, and I want to send a message that we are going to catch you after this glass of wine. Perhaps the most notorious case in which the D.C. law on rifles and shotguns has been used to charge a crime in recent years involves the shooting at Comet Ping Pong Restaurant in 2016, which is ironic for me for a number of reasons. One, the Comet Ping Pong thing, well, of course, you all know the Pizzagate thing, but Comet, their sign, they had this retro, wasn't neon, I don't think, but a light up sign for their restaurant, Comet, but that was taken from Comet Liquors, which used to operate in the Adams Morgan district of DC back in the 90s. I don't know how long into the 90s, or certainly the early 90s and earlier, was a bit of a neighborhood institution then. And they were just in mind for me lately. I used to live around the corner from there. And like I said, it was an institution. And during the, 1990, 91 disturbances, riots really, in the nearby Mount Pleasant neighborhood, there was a lot, riot situation. People out in the streets, a lot of tear gas, police, some looting, et cetera, and in situations like that, a liquor store is a frequent target of looting, and they had a very nice establishment with a lot of plate glass windows, great for window shopping, terrible for defense against looting. But I recall that the owners of Comet Liquor there boarding up their windows and allegedly manning the place with a, I guess, permitted shotgun way back when. Anyway, the place survived the riots thanks to the rumors that the owner was inside with a shotgun and the boarded up windows, but eventually closed, and I guess Comet Ping Pong bought up this sign somehow and thus the name of their place. And then later on, isn't it interesting that the Comet sign went back up and once again lured a long gun? So it's got a magic signal that it sends out, luring people with long guns to their premises. Anyway, back to the story. The most notorious case in which the D.C. law on rifles and shotguns had been used to charge a crime in itself in recent years involved the incident at Comet Ping Pong in 2016. The shooter, Edgar Madison Welch, who I believe is dead now, and may have been in a gun fail situation at some point. Or maybe he found himself a cop, suicide by cop situation later on. We can look him up to tell you what happened. I don't know if they're going to follow up with this one. Anyway, Edgar Madison Welch subscribed to, of course, the baseless online conspiracy theory that a child sex trafficking ring was operating at the establishment, what was dubbed the Pizzagate conspiracy. And of course, all my Pizzagate people are mad about the actual child sex trafficking ring with Jeffrey Epstein, but somehow not mad enough to show up and try to force the issue with guns. Anyway, yes, the update from earlier this year, January of 2025, the Pizzagate gunman was in fact killed by police during a traffic stop in North Carolina. And golly, isn't that something? I can't believe he would end up dying by the sword, so to speak, except, of course, the sword being a gun. Anyway, he was carrying that AR-15 openly with one hand on the pistol grip and the other hand on the handguard around the barrel, such that anyone with an unobstructed view could see the gun, prosecutors said in 2017 when Welch was sentenced to 4 years in prison. The customers and employees fled the building. At one point, Welch encountered a locked room and attempted to force open the door, first using a butter knife and then discharging his assault rifle multiple times into the door. Because too many people have seen too many things on TV where you can shoot locks open. I'm not so sure that that actually works. No one was injured in the shooting, thankfully. Welch was also convicted of other offenses in addition to carrying the rifle, i.e. shooting people or shooting around people. Anyway, he died this year in a police shooting that began with a traffic stop in North Carolina. Okay, so at least they did know that. Loose end you want to tie up there. Anyway, so that's what alleged drunk-ass Jeanine Pirro is up to, using her powers to make sure that certain people won't be bothered if they're walking around D.C. with their cosplay long guns. All right. Elsewhere in law enforcement, maybe we can make it a law enforcement theme today. Let's open this one up here. There are some doings at the FBI, which are of some interest, written up by Liz Dye at Public Notice. I have this piece entitled Dan Bongino's Babysitter. There's a new FBI, I guess, sheriff in town, essentially being sold as an adult minder for the FBI leadership who are in over their head, except the guy that they've brought in is in over his head too. Liz Dye tells us all about this here. Dan Bongino's Babysitter. FBI leadership needs some adult supervision. I don't know that she thinks that they got it. I don't. But we'll tell you the name and background of the person who showed up for work. Anyway, on Monday, the Trump administration announced that Missouri Attorney General Andrew Bailey will be appointed co-deputy director of the Federal Bureau of Investigations. Now, there's no such position. There's never been a co-deputy director. And you may remember from when Bongino first took over the job, the deputy director traditionally has come from the ranks of the active agents and is somebody who knows the ins and outs of the daily operations of the Bureau very well, for having been there for usually 20 plus years and having been assigned, to the field and knows how the agents work. Not the case with Dan Bongino. That went out the window. And he was to be supervised by somebody else who likewise had no experience with the FBI, Kash Patel. And between the two of them, they, don't know what they're doing, but that's the way Trump likes it. But apparently they decided they needed somebody else. And this, too, somebody else pointed out, unrelated to the fact that he's taking over at the FBI, Andrew Bailey is like the third Missouri attorney general in a row to A, failed to finish serving out his term, and B, used as a stepping stone to greater power in the federal government and doing nothing for Missouri. Anyway, Liz goes on to say, this is an odd arrangement. As the Washington Post notes, the deputy director is usually a career official with a deep understanding of the FBI's structure and staffing, not someone with zero federal prosecutorial or investigative experience. This is the case. Now, there's also the awkward fact that the position is currently occupied by former right-wing griftcaster Dan Bongino. Assigning Bongino a babysitter is hardly a vote of confidence. And all he could manage on Twitter was a terse welcome. He did punctuate it with 3 American flags, though, Liz notes. By the way, the babysitter term, I think, comes from Marcy Wheeler hanging that name on the new job, the previously non-existent co-deputy director. I mean, it's weird and childish just to call it that. Anyway, and so, Liz continues, it fell to Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, Trump's former personal lawyer, to roll out the red carpet instead. Thrilled to welcome Andrew Bailey as our new FBI co-deputy director, he gushed. As Missouri's Attorney General, he took on the swamp, fought weaponized government, and defended the Constitution. And now he's bringing that fight to DOJ. Boilerplate, Sure, he defended the Constitution. No, not really. Well, Liz has something to say about this guy, which may be indicated here in the next section heading Swamp Monster. Bailey's tenure as Missouri's AG was short and undistinguished. Previously, he served as general counsel to Republican Governor Mike Parsons, who appointed him as AG in 2023, when then AG Eric Schmidt got elected to the Senate. I forgot that even happened. Bailey immediately set about using his office, or abusing it, depending on your perspective, to burnish his MAGA bona fides, like we say here in America. Anybody want to remind me of the correct pronunciation? Not really. Don't worry about it. Who cares? You know what it is. He harassed trans people. This is how you boost your MAGA credentials. He boosted conspiracy theories about President Biden and the auto pen. And the third most important thing on the list for how to burnish your credentials in MAGA land, he grew a beard. Really? That's the thing. He was also Johnny on the spot for any Trump world scut work that needed doing, like filing a troll suit against the state of New York. Why does he wonder about the state of New York? No reason. He's from Missouri. Why sue New York? For daring to prosecute Trump for fraud, Letitia James, which he called violating Missourians' First Amendment right to hear from a presidential candidate in the 2024 presidential election. How? I have no idea. The fact that he was on trial made him an even bigger media star than he already was, even as a former president. Everybody was covering what he was doing. And there were members of Congress showed up cosplaying as Trump, dressing exactly like him and standing outside knowing that the media would cover every word that they said. How it's a violation of anybody's First Amendment rights to hear from a presidential candidate, I have no idea. But there you go. Maybe some of the attempts at gag orders. But anyway, yeah, still targeting Letitia James. And I told you, Ed Martin has been creeping around her house for the last couple of days just to make things worse. Anyway, the Supreme Court studiously ignored this stupid, I would add, stunt and a similar effort to intimidate the nonprofit news outfit Media Matters for America. That fell flat when Bailey tried to take the fake law he practiced in Missouri on the road. I guess he could get away with it in Missouri because he was an elected figure there, but nationally, no thanks. In that case, Trump Viper Stephen Miller hissed out a demand for state attorneys general, to prosecute Media Matters for the, quote, fraud of pointing out that ads for major brands were showing up next to pro-Nazi content, and Bailey fell all over himself to oblige. Here is the Twitter exchange in which it happens, but no news is broken by that. It's just by way of illustration. After executing what he clearly thought was a legal triple axel, subpoenaing Media Matters, and simultaneously filing an enforcement action urging a state court to find that the outlet was in violation because it had sued to block a similar subpoena from Texas AG Ken Paxton. A lot of weird bootstrapping happening here. He found himself with his keister on the ice, blocked by a federal judge in D.C. from retaliating against journalists in violation of the First Amendment. And despite regular appearances on right-wing media to boost his visibility, he seems to have gotten lousy performance reviews from Republican legislators in his own state. And I guess that's what's kept him from the spotlight until now. There's a quote from one of them. "You're asking for more personal service," i.e. funding. I guess that is enclosed in parentheses. "But you're leaving $2 million on the bottom line," groused State Representative John Voss in February when Bailey's office demanded that the legislature increase funding for his office to staff up. More of the quote here says, "I honestly think that the issue isn't money, it's something else preventing you from being able to hire attorneys." As the Missouri Independent reported, Bailey's office spent only 2/3 of its $43 million budget allocation for fiscal year 2024 as it hemorrhaged staff unwilling to waste their time and talent suing, for instance, Starbucks for not hiring enough white baristas. Yeah, I wouldn't want to do that either. Hi everybody, it's me, David Waldman. Yes, the same guy who interrupts you all the time. Interrupting you one more time just to tell you again, another reminder that your contributions are what keep this show on the air, and patreon.com, patreon.com, is still among the easiest ways to make the sustaining subscription donations that keep us afloat. Are you ready for the pep talk about how our Patreon campaign is still going strong and growing? Well, too bad. Yeah, the plain fact is we actually are headed in the wrong direction, and whereas we once had about 175 monthly patrons, we're now actually down below 150. Time to recruit some more. Not exactly the kind of news I wanted to share, but there it is. For those of you in a position to support the show, patreon.com does make it easy to make those secure, recurring monthly contributions to do so. Patreon.com/KagroX gets you straight to our donation page. We've been through a lot together. The worst of the pandemic, we hope. The worst of the insurrection, we hope. So go ahead and treat yourself. You don't need an excuse. Give yourself the gift of a little something you enjoy in life. Support the show. And of course, if you happen to prefer using PayPal or even the Square Cash app, we're up and running on those options too. So thanks again, everyone, for all your support. We couldn't, or at least shouldn't, do it without you. Hope you'll be on board soon too. Thanks for all your support. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Talked into the last break, so hopefully that doesn't cause too many editing problems. Anyway, yeah, pretty dumb what they've been up to down in Missouri, and it has apparently cost him his ability as AG to hire competent help in the AG's office. He wanted more money somehow for it, but I guess the Republicans in the state legislature there said, you didn't even spend the money we gave you last year because you literally couldn't give it away. People were not willing to work for you because they were going to end up wasting their time and talent, as they say here, suing Starbucks for not hiring enough white baristas. But it wasn't just Missourians who were unimpressed. Even Trump was underwhelmed by Bailey when he met with him during the transition. According to the New York Times, Bailey lost out on the federal AG job to Pam Bondi because, quote, the president, who likes aggressive personalities, found him too laid back and somewhat lackluster. So lost the race to Pam Bondi, but they were willing to put him into the FBI as an underling. They found him a job for that. Why? I don't know. I mean, why not stay as Attorney General of Missouri? But I guess Republicans there were done with him too. So what's the milquetoast Midwesterner doing back in D.C., Liz asks. Next heading title here is Make Something Happen, Man. The problem appears to be that Bongino and his boss, FBI Director Kash Patel, are terrible at their jobs. And I guess they're so terrible that they're even willing to bring in the guy who was too boring to be considered next to Pam Bondi for Attorney General. And by the way, just for a second to pause here, we're talking about Pam Bondi's, I guess, chief competition for the AG job. I mean, you can see she's dangerously unqualified for this job. She was AG of Florida, and I mean, you can point to that, but so was this guy, supposedly anyway, AG of Missouri. So on paper, you would just point that out, right? Well, we're arguing about it. And a Republican would say, well, he's Attorney General of Missouri. He's qualified enough for the job. Well, he was Attorney General of Missouri for about 15 minutes, right? So he was AG beginning in 2023. But talk about your weird, to use the term I don't like for it, meteoric rise. So he's chief of staff or chief counsel to the governor, which, you got to work somehow to get there, but it's largely a political position, right? And nobody has to approve of your occupying the position. And then he names you Attorney General, and then everybody, says, oh, the governor wants him, so we'll vote for him. He doesn't really have the experience to do this, but hey, it's only Attorney General of the state. Maybe it'll work. But it didn't, because even Republican legislators there thought he was lousy at the job. But he was on the job for under 2 years. And then, well, we just turned him from my general counsel into AG. And he's been largely untested and has mostly wasted his time since then. But let's make him Attorney General for the United States of America. Even Trump couldn't swallow that, though. Pam Bondi, for all her lack of gravitas, was Attorney General of a considerably larger state and elected to the position, as I understand it, and served for many more years, unsuccessfully, but many more. Anyway, the problem that I guess they think bringing this wackadoodle in that needs to be solved is that Bongino and Kash Patel are so bad at their jobs that even this inexperienced idiot is an improvement, I guess. Most recently, they found themselves crosswise with the MAGA base, of course, because why? I'm skipping over the descriptions of the MAGA base. The MAGA base they so assiduously cultivated in private life after announcing that, contra their prior public blustering, Jeffrey Epstein really did kill himself, and then they followed that up by releasing an obviously doctored video to prove it. That's not going to help with the conspiracy nuts. The backlash after Bondi walked back her promise to release the, quote, Epstein client list was so fierce that it reduced Bongino to a raging tantrum, after which he failed to show up for work. But while the Epstein fiasco was the most public demonstration of Bongino and Patel's incompetence, it was hardly the only one. I gave up everything for this, Bongino whined on Fox News back in May, apparently shocked that the job required him to do more than shout into a microphone a few hours a day, which is what I do. Maybe I could move on to this job after this. Next administration. You want to fight fire with fire? We're going to have to redistrict in California, and don't worry about the optics of it. And while you're at it, the next Democratic administration can give me a high-paid, high-power D.C. job. I live nearby. I've been shouting into a microphone needlessly for a long time. Okay. I don't really want that work. Anyway, he went on to say, you remember the quotes from him. I stare at these four walls all day in D.C. by myself, divorced from my wife. Not divorced, but I mean separated, divorced. And it's hard. I mean, we love each other, and it's hard to be apart. Why Mrs. Bongino can't join her husband in D.C. was left unexplained, of course. An embedded Aaron Rupar video cap of these comments is included. And then Patel was apparently so offended at the suggestion that he rarely shows his face in the Hoover building that he ended up suing MSNBC commentator Frank Figliuzzi for noticing it. That's against the law, as you know. Bongino was momentarily able to stanch the bleeding by promising the faithful that he'd seen some stuff, we'll say, and would soon unleash the retribution he so long predicted. I didn't know that he had made this promise, but here is the tweet in which he does it. I guess. I don't know. Do I need to read this? Who cares? It's Dan Bongino. But anyway, despite the solemn vow to strike a blow against the deep state, which is apparently in this embedded tweet here, Bongino and Patel have done little more than fire a few career civil servants and reshuffle the org chart. Clearly, if Trump wants the FBI to do more than harass D.C. residents, which is what they're up to now, he'll need someone more creative than these two. So, the make something happen man, I guess, for this is supposed to be Bailey. Andy Bailey may lack prosecutorial chops, managerial skills, or federal government experience, but the man is definitely creative. This is a guy who threatened Target because selling Pride onesies amounted to potential interference with parental authority in matters of sex and gender identity and possible violation of fiduciary duties by the company's directors and officers. Not at all, but that's what he said. After a high school student in St. Louis or St. Louis, as they sometimes say, was injured in an off-campus fight, Bailey claimed that the child was a victim of DEI and investigated the school for prioritizing race-based policies over basic student safety. In an off-campus fight? What? And he's shown himself perfectly willing to defy court orders, something the Trump DOJ insists on from lawyers in its service, but you're not allowed to say so, or you find yourself with an ethics complaint against you, like Judge Boasberg. In July, Bailey almost got himself held in contempt of court after instructing prison officials not to release a woman exonerated after serving 43 years for a crime she did not commit. Wow. Well, I mean, if as a matter of law in the courts, they said she was not guilty of the crime, you're supposed to release her. But, let's see you make it happen. Once I say the people with the keys are fired if they unlock the doors for her, we'll see where this goes. In short, if you are looking for someone to launch 1,000 pointless investigations that stick it to the woke and make Fox News hosts clap like giddy seals, then Bailey might be just the man for the job. He can definitely make stuff happen for purposes of the news cycle, even if that stuff inevitably flames out or gets enjoined by a federal court. Or, as the editorial board of the Kansas City Star put it, we expect that his task in the new job will be to push the legal limits of the FBI's considerable powers in order to go after the president's rivals and wage ideological warfare. That is, after all, how he used his platform in Missouri. And so, Dan Bongino will soon be sharing his four walls in D.C. with a buddy. I don't know whether they get along or not, but he's going to get one. According to the Times, the administration is unwilling to fire him outright for fear that having him leave his job could undermine the president. Instead, they'll let him kick around the building for a while until he gets bored enough to declare victory against the deep state and take himself home. In the meantime, Bailey will use the FBI to go after whichever corporation or state legislator or pregnant teenager will win the news cycle for Team Trump. It's terrible for democracy, but it does generate tremendous content. Yeah, well, okay. We now have that to look forward to from, what's his name again? Andrew Bailey, supposedly in the newly created out of thin air position of co-deputy director of the FBI. Well, we'll see whether that goes anywhere. Now you're on notice to keep an eye out for this guy. Let's see. Other things. Well, while we're in the realm of law enforcement, maybe I'll throw this one in here. From up in Maine. Those of you up there may have already registered this story, but the Washington Post is just getting around to it. Maine police officer arrested by ICE. Well, you'd normally, oh, well, that's clearly, I guess I can figure out how that happened. Was he maybe of a darker skin tone and they figured he must be an immigrant? Or maybe he even was one. I don't know. But he's a police officer, and that should avail you nothing. They're dedicated to enforcing the law ruthlessly against anyone. We're all equal before the law, and for the first time ever, they've decided that being a police officer doesn't get in the way of being arrested for something. Well, anyway, this Maine police officer, you would think, mistakenly arrested, and now everything's fine, except somehow this Maine police officer, though now released, has volunteered to leave the country. All right, what's going on here? U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement says a Maine police officer arrested by immigration authorities has agreed to voluntarily leave the country. What? Why? Well, this reported by Patrick Whittle of the AP and running in the Washington Post. Dateline here, Old Orchard Beach, Maine. Not sure where that is, but, Maine. Other than that, I can't tell you much about it, but those of you in Maine can tell me. A Maine police officer arrested by immigration authorities has agreed to voluntarily leave the country, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement said on Monday. ICE arrested Old Orchard Beach Police Department Reserve Officer John Luke Evans of Jamaica, which I guess they mean not Jamaica, New York, Long Island, but rather Jamaica, the island nation in the Caribbean. But he's here serving as a police officer, which I guess, okay, I'm not really certain of how that came to be, but allegedly still of Jamaica in their view. But look at the complications here. This happened on July 25th as part of the agency's effort to step up immigration enforcement. And what better way to step up immigration enforcement than going to the police station and arresting people there who were working as officers? I don't know. I feel like they could have targeted someone else, but they didn't. Officials with the town and police department, though, have said federal authorities previously told them that Evans was legally authorized to work in the U.S. Like they checked, you're going to be a police officer. I think it's, a fairly responsible way of approaching things. Well, now you're a citizen of Jamaica. There's nothing that says you can't serve as a police officer here in the United States if you're not a citizen. Are you applying for citizenship? Does that matter? I don't know whether they want that in a police officer or not. But the most important thing there would be, do you have the kind of visa or whatever it might be that allows you to work in this country? Can we employ you? And as you know, Republicans for many years screamed that there ought to be a centralized location where people could go, perhaps online, and check a national database to see whether or not someone was eligible for employment in this country, so that you weren't hiring people who were here illegally or who at least didn't have authorization to work while they were here. And they created such a system so that businesses and I guess governments as well could be sure that they weren't running afoul of the law in hiring people, and especially running afoul of the law in hiring their police officers. But this is what makes this story fascinating. Not that, Old Orchard Beach doesn't deserve our attention. Not that it doesn't deserve our attention that a police officer finds himself arrested by ICE, but well, let me go on and you'll see what I'm talking about here. An ICE representative reached by telephone told the Associated Press on Monday that a judge has granted voluntary departure for Evans. He says he's going to leave, go back to Jamaica, I guess, and that he could leave as soon as that day. The representative did not provide other details about Evans's case. What's going on here? Evans's arrest touched off a dispute between Old Orchard Beach officials and ICE, as you might imagine. Police Chief Elise Chard has said the department was notified by federal officials that Evans was legally permitted to work in the country, and the town submitted information via the Department of Homeland Security's E-Verify program prior to Evans's employment. Right? They followed the rules. Can we employ this guy? You got to check with E-Verify. All right? They put his name into E-Verify and it comes back. Federal government says A-OK. He is a citizen of Jamaica, but legally eligible to work here in the United States. Go ahead and hire him. So they did. So that puts ICE and the federal administration and their surge and their whole immigration policy in a tight spot, right? The guy's a police officer, supposed to have the respect of the community. I don't know where you want to go with analyzing that, but there's still that part, certainly among, in MAGA world, if you're not guarding the Capitol on January 6th, but you're a police officer, you're a hero. If you're guarding that, or you're in our way of beating up somebody at a liberal rally or something like that, then we hate the cops. You know how that goes. Anyway, they checked, everything checked out. He was fine. They arrested him anyway. What's going on here? But, the Trump administration can't admit error ever. So get this. This is really amazing. What's the story? They turned to Homeland Security Department and to Assistant Secretary of Homeland Security and spokesperson Tricia McLaughlin, one of the most egregious pro-Trump liars in the administration, and asked her, what's up with this? We checked on E-Verify. They said it was legal for him to work here. Why is ICE arresting him? Tricia McLaughlin accuses Old Orchard Beach. Ready for this one? Reckless reliance on the department's E-Verify program. What the hell is that supposed to mean? And that's never been a crime either. The crime of reckless reliance on government records. Usually, talk about your problems with the presumption of regularity, right? Usually, if you've relied on that sort of federal information, you kind of get a pass on these things. Did you hire this person despite the fact that they're here illegally and they're not permitted to work? Actually, the government records say he is permitted to work. Now, if it was an error, that would be one thing, and you could say that, but the government would then likewise say it was an error, but you were entitled to rely on it because of the whole presumption of regularity. You're allowed to presume that federal records are accurate. They may not be. They're subject to question. If we prove to you that they're not, we may need to remedy the situation, but we're not going to charge you with recklessly relying on the information we told you by law you had to rely on. But this administration is going to do that. That's where they are. They cannot admit error. We're never wrong. If you're wrong because you relied on something we wrongly told you, you're reckless for relying on us, you idiot. What's wrong with you? We're the Trump administration. You think you can rely on us? That's not really an answer to the question. Not really a way to address the situation. E-Verify is, of course, an online system that allows employers, well, it's supposed to allow employers, to check if potential employees can work legally in the U.S. But it's not that anymore. Now Tricia McLaughlin says E-Verify is garbage. You can't use it for anything. Don't use it. But you're under arrest if you decline to use it and check, we'll arrest you for neglecting your duties of checking on E-Verify. If you do check on E-Verify, and you find out that the person is eligible to work, we're also going to arrest you for that because you're recklessly relying on it, you dummies. That's not, just like there's no such thing as a co-deputy director of the FBI, there's no such thing as reckless reliance on government records. The town is aware of reports that Evans plans to leave the country voluntarily, Chard said Monday. The town reiterates its ongoing commitment to meeting all state and federal laws regarding employment, Chard said in a statement. We will continue to rely on the I-9 employment eligibility verification form and, dangerously enough, the E-Verify database to confirm employment eligibility, because there's no other way to do it, and you're kind of required to use E-Verify, I think, by law. So, again, we're going to arrest you either way. You're going to charge with something, either neglect to use E-Verify or reckless reliance on it if you do. ICE's detainee lookup website said on Monday that Evans was being held at the Donald W. Wyatt Detention Facility in Central Falls, Rhode Island. However, a representative for Wyatt said Evans had been transferred to an ICE facility in Burlington, Massachusetts. ICE officials did not respond to requests for comment on the discrepancy. That's interesting too, right? The computer database said he's in Rhode Island, but a representative for the facility in Rhode Island says he was actually transferred to another facility in Burlington, Massachusetts, and no comment on the discrepancy. But now I think ICE or the Department of Homeland Security should charge the Washington Post, or the AP rather, with reckless reliance on the information in the database and or the information that they were given by the official in Rhode Island. It was unclear if Evans was represented by an attorney, and a message left for him at the detention facility was not returned. ICE officials said in July that Evans overstayed his visa and unlawfully attempted to purchase a firearm, which is okay if you do it in Jeanine Pirro's district now, except I hesitate to tell you this, but Evans is black, so maybe it won't work out. WMTW-TV reported on Monday that Evans' agreement to a voluntary departure means he will be allowed to leave the U.S. at his own expense to avoid being deported. That's self-deportation for you. Can he take the gun with him? I don't know. Did he get the gun? I don't know. Did he need it for work? I don't know. But I can tell you this. Don't ask the federal government, because if you do and they tell you and you print it, you have recklessly relied on them for information. That's really one of the more absurd things I've ever heard in my life. And I wanted to share that one with you for that reason. It's not that important of a story otherwise, except, I mean, I'm sure poor Mr. Evans here probably thinks it's one of the most important stories of his life, though he is self-deporting as a result. But yeah, just to sort of highlight things, please file that one away. Reckless reliance. That is really something. I mean, gold star for innovation on Tricia McLaughlin's part. Who knows what they're going to come up with next. All right. Another quick hit here. Something I ought to add to the mix. Trump administration revokes security clearances of 37 current and former government officials, is the news as reported again by the AP. We're very AP heavy here today. But this one directly in their own site, and illustrated with a photo of a stern-looking Tulsi Gabbard staring at the photographer. She's the one, I guess, in charge and behind this latest revocation and latest purge. Eric Tucker, Amer Madhani, and Matthew Lee are the reporters on this piece from just yesterday. The Trump administration said Tuesday it was revoking the security clearances of 37 current and former national security officials in the latest act of retribution, targeting public servants from the federal government's intelligence community. And you can guess what it is. Long story short here, they worked on investigating whether or not there were ties between Trump and Russia in the 2016 election, and are therefore fired and having their security clearances revoked. A memo from DNI Tulsi Gabbard accuses the singled out individuals of having engaged in what she's doing, the politicization or weaponization of intelligence to advance personal or partisan goals, failing to safeguard classified information like putting it in your bathroom or whatever, failing to adhere to professional analytic tradecraft standards, and other unspecified detrimental conduct. The memo did not offer evidence to back up the accusations. It just said them. Many of the officials who were targeted left the government years ago after serving in both senior national security positions and lower profile roles far from the public eye. Some worked on matters that have long infuriated Trump, like the intelligence community assessment that Russia interfered in the 2016 elections. And several signaled their concerns about Trump by signing a critical letter in 2019 that was highlighted on social media last month by right-wing provocateur and close Trump ally and lunatic and amateur handcuffer Laura Loomer. So she discovered this thing 5-6 years later, put it on Twitter, and now they're all being stripped of their security clearances. The action is part of broader Trump administration campaign to wield the levers of government against perceived adversaries, which is, of course, why they're firing those guys. We saw you, we think, wield government against perceived adversaries. Therefore, we are going to wield it against you and try the two wrongs making a right thing, even as we scream that two wrongs don't make a right if the issue is, redistricting or whatever might otherwise get in our way. So it reflects as well the president's continued distrust of career intelligence officials that he has long seen as working against his interests, i.e. catching him in his espionage. The revocation of clearances has emerged as a go-to tactic for the administration, a strategy critics say risks chilling dissenting voices from an intelligence community accustomed to drawing on a range of viewpoints before formulating an assessment. These are unlawful and unconstitutional decisions that deviate from well-settled decades-old laws and policies that sought to protect against just this type of action. Mark Zaid, a national security lawyer whose own clearance was revoked by the Trump administration, said in a statement he called it hypocritical for the administration to claim these individuals politicized or weaponized intelligence, and it is. Gabbard on Tuesday sought to defend the move, which she said had been directed by Trump, so doesn't need any defending, I guess. Being entrusted with the security clearance is a privilege, not a right, she wrote on X. Those in the intelligence community who betray their oath to the Constitution and put their own interests ahead of the American people have broken the sacred trust they promised to uphold, Donald Trump. But not you, sir. The security clearance suspension comes amid broader efforts by Gabbard and others in the Trump administration officials, to revisit the intelligence community assessment published in 2017, on Russian election interference, including by declassifying a series of years-old documents meant to cast doubt on the legitimacy of its findings. Multiple government investigations have reached the same conclusion that Russia interfered in the 2016 election in sweeping fashion, including through a hack and leak operation of Democratic emails and a social media campaign aimed at sowing discord and swaying public opinion. But Trump has long resisted the assessment that Russian President Vladimir Putin interfered in his favor, and his Justice Department has also authorized a grand jury investigation that could bring fresh scrutiny to Obama-era officials. Just to reiterate this, you know all about that by now. Security clearances are, of course, important not only for current government workers, but also former ones whose private sector jobs require them to retain access to sensitive information. Stripping clearances from such employees could make it hard for them to do their jobs, though it's unclear how many of the former officials still have or require one. On his first day in office, Trump said he would revoke security clearances of more than 4 former intelligence officials who signed a 2020 letter saying that the Hunter Biden laptop saga bore the hallmarks of Russian information operations. Yes, so he's still angry about that one as well. He's also revoked the clearances of former President Joe Biden, former Vice President Kamala Harris, and he attempted to do the same for lawyers at a spate of prominent law firms, but was rebuffed by federal judges in those cases. Some of those who were targeted in the latest action were part of Biden's national security team. Many only learned of the Gabbard action from news reports on Tuesday, said 2 former government officials who were both on the list. Both spoke, of course, on condition of anonymity as they ponder whether to take legal action. Well, that'll make them less than anonymous, of course, when the time comes. Plenty more to review, of course, as the show continues. 2 more days this week to try and round up a couple other things. There's a very long profile of Pam Bondi by... is it Ruth Marcus? Yeah, writing for The New Yorker. We'll see if we can squeeze any of the highlights of that in, or maybe that's a Friday read. It's a very long one. And a couple other items that didn't quite make the cut today, but we got to get to in the next couple of days. More profiles as well of Ed Martin and his weird lurking outside of Letitia James's house comes into focus. But first, for the rest of the day here, of course, or right up next on Netroots Radio, the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Justice Putnam brings you his view and roundup of the news today, including a rude awakening for Trump, with major protests chasing his goons from swank D.C. neighborhoods. Lots of great personal video coming out of that one.
You have been listening to Kagro in the Morning with David Waldman.
Actually, a great way to start off the show today. Another great feature right up at the top of the show. This is becoming an increasingly widely used tactic, and people really flexing their muscle and their ability, not always, but sometimes, to drive the ice goons away. The more they see that happening, the less likely they'll be enthused about showing up in your neighborhood.